It's not so much about giving us their money, but how can they make the largest impact? How could they get involved? Outside of philanthropy, what's really incredible about a place like Princeton, and I'm sure you see that, at Fordham and other institutions, is when alumni come back and they serve the institution, right? They serve as volunteers, they serve as mentors, they get involved on advisory councils, and that tends to inspire them to not only give, but to stretch. And by stretch, I mean by increasing their impact, but also thinking about ways that they could inspire other alumni to get involved. And I think that's where, again, that friendship piece really tends to resonate, is when people feel like they have a vested interest in the institution, their voice is heard as alumni. And so
Hey everybody, this is Devin Rankin with Profound Gentlemen, and you're here with EdUp Accelerated Excellence.
This episode of EdUp Accelerated Excellence is supported by the 2.0 conferences to be held in Las Vegas, Nevada, April 7th through 9th, 2026. Business leaders, educators, healthcare experts, marketing and tech professionals, and founding entrepreneurs are welcome to take part. Reserve your space today and receive a 15% discount courtesy of EdUp Accelerated Excellence with the code EDUPXE15OFF. That's EDUPXE15OFF. Check the show notes for more information or learn more and register online at the2conf.com. That's the2conf.com with the code EDUPXE15OFF.
Are you an educational leader or organization seeking innovation, or just a new perspective? Then look no further. Accelerated Excellence Consulting is dedicated to offering support to educational leaders and their organizations to meet their full potential for excellence. Services include strategic planning and problem solving, continuous improvement expertise in areas such as assessment and accreditation, and professional development, empowering leaders, individuals, and groups for personal growth for organizational excellence. To learn more, find us online at xeconsulting.org. That's xeconsulting.org. Have you ever wondered what truly bridges the gap between a student's potential and their ability to walk through those university doors? Well, the pursuit of higher education is often called the great equalizer, a gateway to opportunity and a brighter future. But as state and federal funding fluctuate and tuition costs rise, the gateway can seem out of reach for so many talented students. That's where the crucial, often misunderstood world of university fundraising comes in. It's more than just new buildings or large endowments. It's the engine that powers student success and access, providing vital scholarships, enhancing essential campus resources, and ensuring that students' potential is limited only by ambition and not their pocketbook. Today's guest is an expert in this field of capital giving and fundraising. Eric Almonte is the Assistant Vice President for Capital Giving at Princeton University in Princeton, New Jersey. Eric, welcome to the EdUp Accelerated Excellence podcast. And would you mind introducing yourself to the EdUp community by giving voice to your name and share with us just a highlight overview of what it means to be the Vice President of Capital Giving?
Well, thank you, Jacob. It's a pleasure to be here, and I really appreciate the generous words and the warm introduction. As you said, my name is Eric Almonte. I'm the Assistant Vice President for Capital Giving at Princeton University. And I have the privilege of working with a really talented team of fundraisers. Our primary focus is to generate resources for Princeton University. And primarily we do that with engaging with our alumni community. It is, as I said before, it's a privilege to be able to do that, both because of the generous alumni that we meet, but also for the remarkable students that we get to support. And you kind of alluded to it as you talked about access and affordability. And that's probably one of the bigger challenges, in our current age in terms of providing opportunities for students to go to college. It is so expensive, as you know, to go to school. And we're able to remove that barrier for a lot of students and their families.
So Eric, I like this idea of access and affordability and removing barriers. So let's get into this. I want to know a bit more about this. So having served in the role as dean, I do know how difficult it can be to fundraise, as many folks are charged with that role now in universities, particularly given the economic conditions. So some people say friendship building precedes fundraising. What are your thoughts on that idea?
Yeah, I think, it's really important to develop authentic relationships with donors. And part of our job and the work that we do is try to serve as philanthropic advisors to our alumni and other benefactors like parents and friends of the institution. And a lot of times what we'll do is just talk to folks, hear about their philanthropic passions, and see how their passions align with our university strategic as well as philanthropic objectives. The old adage is, if you ask somebody for money, they'll give you advice. And if you ask them for money, and if you ask them for advice, they tend to be more philanthropic, and so I agree with that. But I think it's and that is almost like a real simple way to put it. But I agree. I think a lot of times we try to serve as thought partners and try to engage with our donors. We try to help them because the last thing we want is for a donor to make a mistake. And what I mean by that is a lot of times they know what they're going to do, right? Our job is to help them maximize their impact at the institution, but also to guide them in a way that there are things that they may not know they're able to do, but we'll be able to sort of help them shape that and be able to actually help them grow what they're actually thinking about doing. And so it works really great when you develop that, as you kind of mentioned, that friendship. And again, we try to consider ourselves more like philanthropic advisors, more like thought partners. And we're able to do that in a meaningful way and find ways that they can connect back to the institution, right? Where it's not so much about giving us their money, but how can they make the largest impact? How could they get involved? Outside of philanthropy, what's really incredible about a place like Princeton, and I'm sure you see that at Fordham and other institutions, is when alumni come back and they serve the institution, right? They serve as volunteers, they serve as mentors, they get involved on advisory councils, and that tends to inspire them to not only give but to stretch. And by stretch, I mean by increasing their impact, but also thinking about ways that they could inspire other alumni to get involved. And I think that's where, again, that friendship piece really tends to resonate, is when people feel like they have a vested interest in the institution, their voice is heard as alumni. And so not only do they give financially, but they give of their time. And I think that's where I think that friendship really plays itself out really nicely.
Yeah, I've heard another guest, Dr. Monica Shealy, talk about it as talents and treasures.
Absolutely.
So being able to back time, and as you mentioned earlier, if you ask for money, they give you advice. That could be a talent. But then treasures would be sometimes reaching a bit deeper into one's pockets to help fund a particular initiative.
And these are, a lot of times, right, these are industry leaders, subject matter experts. And so, yeah, it's great to have their philanthropy, but when you have a CEO or a CFO of a global institution working with you, helping you shape your curriculum, mentoring students, opening up internship and job opportunities for your students, for your student athletes. That's transformational, right? And it's actually hard to put a dollar behind that, because the impact of that is a lot larger than a one-time gift that you have. And again, that's why from an engagement perspective, we also tend to focus around alumni engagement, because that's so important, alumni and as well as parent engagement, because that's also, I think, another gift that you get with the relationship.
So Eric, let's go back a bit. So as a first generation Dominican American, first generation college.
That's right, yeah.
How has your upbringing shaped your perspective on education and opportunity?
That's a great question. I was fortunate. My parents immigrated to this country from the Dominican Republic, and I am, extremely proud of that. And I'm also just indebted to my parents for the sacrifices that they made for me and my siblings. They gave up a lot for us because they thought that educationally we would have better opportunities in this country. And as a first generation student, it was difficult to make that transition to college. I tell people that, and I think this by now, like after about 10 minutes of getting to know me, you're going to know that I'm from Brooklyn, I'm Dominican, and I went to the University at Buffalo. Right, and you may even hear about me, playing football up at Buffalo. And then I met my beautiful wife there. I got to give her a shout out. But it was difficult because there was a lot that I didn't know being a first generation student. And I was fortunate to get into the educational opportunity program at the University at Buffalo. And so that was a community that really helped me grow. And I had, mentors and sponsors there that, helped me learn about things like study hall and, test taking tips, right? I was a talented student, but I also, from an academic preparation standpoint, there were things that I didn't know, and so I was fortunate to have that. I was fortunate to have people that I live with that are dear friends of mine that, would grade papers for me, before I would submit them to make sure that punctuation was right, and that was something that I've always felt, I was fortunate with. But going back to the sacrifices that my parents made, the things that they did for my siblings and I, and I'm equally as proud of my siblings, right? I have an older sister that's a school teacher in New York City, and so I know she's transforming lives. I have a younger brother that has done amazing things, going to some, pretty good institutions, getting his MBA. My older sister also got her MBA as well. And he works at Fidelity, and then I have a younger sister that is working a college access program at Hofstra University, and also, working on the MBA. All three of them have MBAs, or will soon have MBAs, and I'm the only one that doesn't. But a testament to what our parents did, the values that they imparted on us, and the, just the hard work and dedication that they showed us to be able to persevere academically.
Well, it also sounds like there's a theme that runs through the value of education in your family, and that seems to be giving back.
Absolutely. Yeah. Service is a big thing for us, right? We were also, very much, in the Catholic faith, and so service was a core value of our family. Many times during the holidays, my sister and I in particular, we would go and go serve at hospitals and just check in with the elderly. There are things that my kids, we have two children, my wife and I, and we've served some homeless shelters and some other things. And I share that not to brag, but just to kind of echo what you mentioned, right? Like service is a core value. These are things that our parents kind of taught us. My father had an incredible work ethic, almost to my detriment, because sometimes I'll kind of take on his persona on the weekend, and some of the things that we do, my wife's like, "Hey man, we gotta take a break, man." So
Oh, that's beautiful. So you've had a full career. You have worked on both the student success side of the house and now in fundraising, in higher education. How have those dual perspectives shaped your understanding of how institutions can truly advance access and inclusion?
Yeah, that's again another really good question. Yeah, I've been fortunate in my career in a lot of ways because I've worked at a myriad of institutions. Working at a private liberal arts institution like Denison University, and not only working in student affairs as an assistant dean for academic support, but I was also an assistant football coach there. When I left there, I worked at the Ohio Board of Regents. So they were the coordinating body for colleges and universities in the state of Ohio. And we had a lot of initiatives there to get both rural and inner city kids to start thinking about going to college, but working primarily, with their parents. And then going to a community college. And the mission at a community college is vastly different than, working at a place like Princeton. From there, working at a Drexel University, which, great co-op program that really focuses on service learning. I worked at Cheney University, I got to get this right because I don't want, my colleagues at Lincoln to come beat me up, but the oldest historically serving Black institution of higher education in America that was founded in 1837. And serving as the chief of staff there, really learned a lot about fundraising. I owe a great deal to the late Dr. Michele Howard-Rittal, who I got to serve as her chief of staff. Mission there, much different, especially as it relates to teacher education there. So all of these opportunities, in addition to working at St. Joseph's in fundraising and Drexel at fundraising and here now at Princeton, provided me with an enterprise view of higher education, where you get to see both the student affairs side, but also you really get to see that, we are in the business of educating people, right? And so while there are pieces of it that you feel are great, you also have to understand that it is a business enterprise, right? We're educating people, and that's where the fundraising comes in, because there are costs associated with the business, right? Tuition dollars, and we get the opportunity to fundraise to, when I mentioned before, access and affordability. It's getting more and more expensive to educate a person. And so if we're able to remove that barrier by securing scholarship support, we're able to help more people go to college with either less or no debt. And that's powerful, because you walk out at some of these institutions, unfortunately, and you're saddled with $100, $200, $300, $400,000 in student loans. That's a heavy lift, right? And you go and you want to start a family, or you want to go and purchase a home. Those are barriers that sometimes you just can't overcome. Or on the front end, you're a talented student, but you're first generation, and you want to go to an institution, but you don't have the resources to get there. So working student affairs and now, more of the administrative act, sort of outside of the student affairs side, you see some of the challenges that universities are facing. We're seeing a lot now, especially as the birth rates are starting to go down. Institutions are all kind of going after the same students. And so that's causing, a lot of friction, a lot of challenges. And so, to your question, I think, it's interesting, but I think having that integrated perspective and having the benefit, and the privilege of working at numerous institutions, you get to sort of see the business of higher education. It is amazing. I mean, when I said before that it's a privilege, it really is, because I believe it is our access to education is our number one civil rights issue right now. And if you're able to have that in education and you have those credentials, our president at Princeton will say, it's, especially having like a Princeton education, but I think in education in general, it's a rocket booster for your life. It will just propel you in so many ways. And so to be able to do that, but to be able to understand it now, right? To have that perspective, I feel like I could be a greater advocate and resource to my institution because of the numerous hats I've had, but also the various roles that I've had and the perspective that each one has sort of shared and imparted on me.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. I've had a similar experience, but having worked in multiple institutions, I think it gives you a well-rounded
Absolutely
of higher education as an enterprise, as you mentioned. Are you an educational leader or organization seeking innovation or just a new perspective? Then look no further. Accelerated Excellence Consulting is dedicated to offering support to educational leaders and their organizations to meet their full potential for excellence. Services include strategic planning and problem solving, continuous improvement expertise in areas such as assessment and accreditation, and professional development, empowering leaders, individuals, and groups for personal growth for organizational excellence. To learn more, find us online at xeconsulting.org. That's xeconsulting.org.
Thank you for listening to EdUp Accelerated Excellence. This episode is supported by the 2.0 conferences to be held in Las Vegas, Nevada, USA, April 7th through 9th, 2026. Business leaders, educators, healthcare experts, marketing and tech professionals, and founding entrepreneurs are welcome to take part. Reserve your space today and receive a 15% discount courtesy of EdUp Accelerated Excellence with the code EDUPXE15OFF. That's EdUPXE15OFF. Check out the details in the show notes or learn more and register online at the2conf.com. That's the2conf.com with the code EDUPXE15OFF.
And so you and I met on a Middle States visit, accreditation visit. And you talked a bit about your work at Cheney. So I'm going to ask a question. This might be a bit long, but you worked in multiple institutions, as you mentioned, with different histories and missions and levels of resources from historically underrepresented, as you mentioned, Cheney, and well-endowed institutions, or at least people perceive Princeton, for example, as being better endowed. How have those contrasts shaped your understanding of what equity means in different educational spaces? And this is a two-parter. So equity from those different vantage points, and how might one adapt their approach and aligned for giving to align with each of those missions and cultures.
Yeah. Well, the word that you just said before, and I'll get to the equity piece, but you just used the word mission, right? And so I believe that what each institution, and we know this from our work in Middle States, that your mission is sort of like your North Star. It guides you. And the work that we did at Cheney and Cheney's rich history with preparing leaders, especially as a teacher education institution, is just phenomenal, right? The work that they did. And here, where I live in southeastern Pennsylvania, you go around the various school districts and you see various teachers, especially African American in particular, that went to Cheney, right? And so what they're doing and the impact that they're having on people of color is amazing. When I was there, we had this amazing program. I'm not 100% sure if it's still around, but I was really proud of it, called Call Me Mr. And the premise around Call Me Mr. was that less than 1% of the school teachers were African American males. And so we had received a grant to increase the number of African American males because, for a lot of students, unfortunately, they didn't have that male presence at their home. And so if we can at least provide some type of a male figure in the educational setting, the thought was that we were going to be able to impact students a lot differently. And so really proud of the work that we were doing there. We have great leadership with that program. That's one piece of what I would say made Cheney unique and phenomenal in what it did in its mission. Vastly different than the population that we have and the work that we do at Princeton. Yes, Princeton, great history, but what they do in their mission, totally different, right? I talked, we had talked down in Puerto Rico about, Princeton's mission and their informal model is in the nation's service. Been around since 1746. Amazing alumni base that have gone out of there. But, some of those students, and until 1970, I believe, Princeton was for the most part mostly male. And they started to diversify prior to that, but mostly male. And then it started to change from a both gender and then I think racial composition to the point now the classes are much more diverse, not only racially and gender, but also demographically. And so what Princeton's able to do because of its resources is increase access opportunities to more underserved communities. And so if you look at the class of 2029, the one that was just recently admitted, 25% of the students there are, I believe, first generation low income or Pell eligible. And the majority of those students, and if you look at how much their families making, they make less than $150,000. They're probably going to go to Princeton tuition free. Students that are there, that if their parents make up to about $350,000, they're getting some type of financial aid, right? So Pell eligible, I think, is about 25%. First generation, about 16.7% for the class of 2029. And just a small number, probably about 12% or so, are children of alumni. And so, both institutions serve a purpose. I think what Princeton's doing is looking to really, because it has the resources, to try to look for talent, as everywhere, right? And I think my understanding is that the class of 2029 represents about 47 states. I think the international population is probably about 21% of the incoming class, right? So we're able to kind of look for students from various places because the institution thinks that we can find talent everywhere and open up those opportunities for more individuals. Again, between Cheney, between Princeton, I think both are phenomenal institutions with a storied history. And I think both should, and their alumni should be equally proud of what they do in terms of not only access and opportunity, but also the impact that they have, regionally and around the world. Because when I was at Cheney, I met some phenomenal alumni that, just really proud of what they were able to do. And I'm equally as proud of the folks that I meet, at Princeton and the things that they're doing and how they're helping to, transform lives.
Well, thank you for that. So capital giving, and I'm talking about capital giving more broadly at Princeton, focuses on funding to support access, affordability, research, and innovation. So from your office, how do you prioritize initiatives ensuring that you have the greatest impact for educational equity?
Yeah. So our team, and again, I'm really fortunate to work with a talented group of gifted fundraisers. I have amazing managers that work with our frontline fundraisers, and we focus on our institutional priorities. We just closed the Venture Forward campaign. We never talked about a campaign dollar total. What we focused on was a series of initiatives. one of the initiatives that we had was to increase the class size by 500 students. And in order to do that, we needed to increase the number of dollars that we could offer for scholarship. So when we meet with either alumni or parents or friends of the institution, we'll tend to start the conversation around access and affordability, because that was one of the charges from our president in terms of, what are the things that he would want us to fundraise for. Outside of access and affordability, we will focus on, like, as you mentioned, some of the programmatic things that we're looking to support. We've been growing our School of Engineering and Applied Sciences. We have a quantum and AI initiative that we're really excited about. We just started a recent partnership. So we're part of this consortium with Weill Cornell in New York City and Rockefeller University to do more for cancer research. We do not have a medical school. We're primarily undergraduate based. So we are a liberal arts institution, which means we're really good at basic science. And those institutions, they're really good at what they do, but the work that we do, outside of good, I would say we're probably phenomenal at. But this consortium is great for us because, we could share some of the, attributes that we have and expose our students, because our students wouldn't have the same exposure. We don't have a medical research center. We don't have a hospital, but now our students get to work with other scientists at other institutions to do that kind of research. And that's just a, transformational opportunity. And so we now get to fundraise for things that really move the institution forward, not only from an access and affordability perspective, but also in a way that intensifies the learning, the teaching that happens at Princeton through some of the fundraising, that we're able to do.
So I appreciate this, because I'm hearing a through line where you talked about alignment earlier with the values of alumni and others who want to support the work at Princeton, alignment with the university, but then alignment with the initiatives and your focus on fundraising. So alignment seems to be another thing. I like when you see I look for patterns.
Yeah, that's alignment is such a really good word, because it really speaks to how disciplined we are with our fundraising, right? You can raise a ton of money in areas that are not congruent with the mission or with the strategic priority of the strategic plan of the institution. And the only thing that's going to create is more frustration for the institution and disappointment with your alumni base, right? Because you're gonna take that money and you're not gonna be able to do anything with it. Or you're gonna take that money and it's gonna cost you more, because, every dollar in every initiative, there's again, having that enterprise view has a cost associated with it. But really good institutions are real disciplined in terms of not every dollar. And this is something I said that my dad taught me, right? I remember I was working as a painter, just a side hustle, and I was getting up on a ladder, 28 feet. And I remember telling my dad that I was already graduated college, but I was trying to get a little extra money on the weekends. And he said, "What are you doing that for?" He's like, "What if you fall?" And I was like, "Yeah, but I think probably at the time I was paying for a wedding." And he said, "Dude, you can't do that, because you can't get every dollar." He said, "Just save your money better than trying to get every dollar." And I think the challenge for institutions is, you may see a donor that's going to come to you with a really good idea, but that idea may not align with your institutional priorities, and it may not align with your goals. And so it's better for you to sort of have that discernment and say, that's great. That's a great idea, but we're probably not a candidate for that gift. And I guess we do. I'll say that we do have the benefit of being able to turn sometimes gifts away because it may not align with our institution in terms of like our priorities as well as what our goals are relative to either a campaign or an initiative that we're looking for. So being disciplined, having that disciplined approach, I think is just a really fundamental practice to have.
And we're speaking with Eric Almonte, who is Vice President for Capital Giving at Princeton University. Eric, in your experience, what role do stories of students, families, and communities play in helping donors to truly understand the impact of their giving?
Yeah, Jacob, that's I share this with my team a lot. Our president tends to be the number one storyteller, for the institution. Our role in going out and meeting, with prospective donors is to be the storyteller and to provide voice for our students. Our students are doing phenomenal things on campus, and sometimes that doesn't get out. But we're able to talk about the impact that our students are either having in the local community with some of the volunteer and service activities that they're getting involved with, or with some of the research. And again, I mentioned, our being a part of the consortium and how they are working to help solve, issues with cancer, and being able to talk about the basic research that they're doing. We were fortunate the last couple of years, Princeton, either some of our faculty or alums have won Nobel Prizes. A lot of that research is done with our students, and being able to talk about that and share that story. One of the things that you tend to realize when you're connecting with donors, especially when they start to talk to you about the types of scholarships that they want to create, they'll say, I want to create a scholarship for this left-handed kid from Brooklyn that grew up in the projects. And then when you peel that onion, you're like, you're recreating yourself. You know that, right? And so sometimes we have to guide and advise donors that, yeah, we can do that. But the challenge is we may not find that left-handed, kid from Brooklyn. So, if you really want to make an impact, let's make this really broad, right? Let's open this up. Let's not put as many filters on that scholarship. And rather than to just help that one individual, why don't we say every kid that has need and, their family needs financial aid? Because if we do that, then we're really going to be able to make an impact. And so being the number one storytellers, well, again, I think the president is and our provost, but being the storytellers and being able to share that story and add voice to our students and the work that they're doing, I think it really inspires our alumni to not only give back, but sometimes to stretch themselves.
So speaking of storytelling, can you share an example of a gift or a program that directly improved access or opportunity for students, but I'm going to couch this as underrepresented or those who are most in need?
Yeah, and I can share, countless, stories. If it's Princeton specific, I think we've been able to secure numerous gifts in that space. I'll tell you one that it's actually, I'm really happy for, and it was at another institution, but it was a donor that I met, and they actually started with a nominal pledge to do. We had opened up a new facility, and we had this initiative called Have a Seat, where they could, you go to a theater and you could see a person's name on a seat. Well, we had that type of initiative where, they could put their name on a seat. And, the donor came, really wasn't too engaged, but that was like their sort of like first entryway. And it was African-American alum. He was about to retire. So made that gift. It's probably, a like $2,500 to do that. Not an insignificant amount, but again, just really like starting to get them, someone that really wasn't engaged, started to, start paying attention to us a little more. After they did that, started bringing them around, connecting with students. I remember one day I'm on campus with my kids. We were at some event, and we had an initiative to work with some of our students of color, where we'd ask alumni to like mentor students. And I'm walking by, and there was a restaurant, near campus, and I see like a tap on the window, and I look in, and I see this alum, and he's holding court with like 9 students. And I was like, hey, I kind of wave, and a couple of weeks later, we're talking more about the scholarship, and they did a scholarship. Now we're talking about stretching themselves, right, like that, because they have really started to get involved, and we do the scholarship, super excited. And what we did with the donor, we said, hey, we could pledge this out over a 5-year period. I would say by like year 2 or 3, I remember we're grabbing lunch, hands me a check, and he said, I just wanted this thing to be done, man. And you could tell he's like, I'm stretching myself here, but I'm so happy and really excited about this, and just want to, be able to do it. And I was like, oh man, that's great. I leave the institution. I'm working, some other place now. And I get a call. I still keep in contact with this alum. A couple of years back, I get a call, and he says, hey, I want you to know I just became a trustee at my alma mater. Man, that hands in the back of my neck stood up. I was so excited and so proud for him, because, what he was conveying to me was, the love that he had for that institution. Philanthropy aside, he was just proud that he was able to serve. He was proud because now he's going to be, an exemplar for the current students there, right? As a Black man, he was happy and proud of how he was going to now be able to not only give, but he was going to give of his time, and he was also going to be able to help the university make decisions, as a trustee. And he knew, as a Black male, that he had a responsibility now to also be able to be an advocate, for the students there. So I'm proud of that, not only because of what, the donor and I were able to do. That's a small part. I'm proud of how that donor has stayed involved. To this day, we still talk. We got together for coffee this past summer, shared all the initiatives that he was, a part of, and the movement of the institution, and just really proud, because from an access perspective, someone that graduated from there, wasn't that involved, to now be a trustee, I think he was just really proud of of the service that he's been able to provide that institution.
I mean, indeed, that's quite powerful to start with a small gift. Small gift, right? And the size of the gift, irrespective of the size, listen, I would tell donors a lot of times, like, the fact that you're thinking about us, because your car could break down tomorrow, right? Like, you got some people, they got tuition payments. You got so many other things, but you're choosing to, of all the places in the world, you're choosing to partner with us. That's a powerful thing, and that's a vote of confidence that a lot of times we fail to really recognize. Is when people give to you, they're telling you, hey, I believe in what you're doing, and I want to invest or co-invest with you on your initiatives. Yeah, what came to mind to me is this, you had this campaign, Have a Seat, and he has truly taken a seat.
He's taking a seat, man. He has.
So if you could design the ideal, and I'm going to use the word equity because the podcast focuses on excellence and equity, but the ideal equity-centered fundraising initiative, what would that look like?
You listen, I give an example for our institution right now, Princeton. We have this Emma Bloomberg Center for Access and Opportunity. I hope I'm getting the acronym right. Where we were fortunate to receive a gift from Bloomberg Charities, I think, to increase access and opportunity. From an equity perspective, what we're providing for our students and their families is so many wraparound resources at the institution. Everything from financial literacy to helping, what Princeton wasn't doing up until recently was working with transfer students. What Princeton wasn't doing up until recently was working with our student veterans, right? A lot of institutions work with veterans. And because we didn't have a true transfer program, we could not admit individuals that served, for this country. This gift allowed us to do that. From an equity perspective, we are leveling the playing field and admitting students that, of course, they're talented, but we didn't have the systems in place to allow them a point of entry, right? So we talk about equity, but also to thrive once they got here, because veteran students are probably going to be older. Veteran students are going to probably have families, which most of them did. Being a residential institution, we needed to provide them with the places to bring their families. So we needed to now have apartment-style housing for them, right? That center has also, like I said, provided financial literacy and just other wraparound services so that our students understand, costs and how to manage money. And so, providing them with these other resources, I think, from an equity perspective, really, allows our students to thrive and do well. So that's a gift. I wasn't a part of it, but something that when I look and see like, wow, that's going to be transformational. That is one, because I think we've been able to do so many other things with that one gift, right? Like increasing access and opportunity for our transfer students. That allowed us to now bring in veterans. That allowed us to support their families. We have a first-year leadership institute that brings students in the summer, right? Like we want them when they come. I talked about my academic preparation. We want them when they get to Princeton to have that foundational sort of educational knowledge on, time management, test taking skills, right? And if we could build that up, I think those are examples of equity. And I think we're doing a better job of providing those points for our students.
I appreciate that example because I think it is emblematic of how we misunderstand some of the current narratives around dismantling of issues of diversity, because what that initiative does is it meets a unmet need within the community. But
Absolutely.
We're talking about students who don't look like your traditional undergraduate students. So by virtue of them not looking like the traditional student, that's a diverse population.
Absolutely.
And
they're older, coming with different life experiences, but they're adding to our campus community.
Absolutely.
And that's just great for us.
Again, we're speaking with Eric Almonte, who is Vice President for Capital Giving at Princeton University. Eric, what legacy do you hope your work in capital giving will leave for the next generation of students, leaders, and even peer fundraisers?
Yeah. Wow, that's a really good question. Because I'm first generation, listen, if I'm able to, and my team, if we are able to increase opportunities for students to go to college, and again, this is, Princeton's a phenomenal place with a storied history. If we're able to do that and remove the barrier of affordability, then that's an amazing legacy to be a part of. I think for the profession, I am really proud of the constellation of frontline fundraisers and administrative assistants that we've been able to assemble as part of the capital giving team. I believe that we have the modern and model workplace in my team. And what I mean by that, it is diverse, it is innovative, it is collaborative. We've hired people of color. We've hired, working moms. Like, we are proud, and we provide a supportive work environment. We have a flexible work arrangement. I'm proud of that. I'm proud of the fact that where I work, if I have to go to my son's football game, I'm going to change my schedule to be able to go to my son's football game. And when a member of my team reaches out and says, hey, I got to leave early, I got to go pick my kid up, I'm like, leave early and go pick your kid up. If a member of my team says, hey, I got to take care of my mom, I would be so upset if they told me that they stayed late and they weren't able to take care of their mom. Because our values are, hey, we're going to hold you accountable, right? Like, we have work to do, but the legacy that we want is for people to thrive, but still be effective in the work that they do. And we could do that. It's not one or the other. It's, you can work here. And if you got to go to your kids' play, because I want you to go to your kids' play. All right? That's important to us. And if we are doing that, then we are enabling people to be effective, not only at the workplace, but also at home, and be there for their families when they need to be there. I'm proud of that. That's a legacy that we're trying to shape the narrative for the work.
So, Eric, what's next for you in your work at Princeton in Capital Giving, and how might the EdUp Accelerated Excellence community, your alumni and your supporters and future supporters at Princeton engage with that work?
Yeah, no, thank you for asking. And again, thank you for having me today. I know when we talked about this in Puerto Rico, I was super excited about being able to join your podcast. It's just, you have a great community here, a lot of folks that come in here, and I think you're sharing a lot of knowledge. For us at Princeton, we just wrapped up the Venture Forward campaign, and really proud of the work that we did there in terms of access and affordability. We'll continue, I think, in that space, because we see access and opportunity and affordability as a real core value for the institution. So I think that's going to be an evergreen initiative for us from a fundraising perspective. As it relates to how the community can continue to partner with us, encourage people to seek higher education or more education, right? It doesn't necessarily need, like when my car breaks down, I don't necessarily need a lawyer and I need a mechanic, but that doesn't stop you from being a lifelong learner, right? When I have a plumbing issue, again, I don't need a doctor. I need a plumber. So if we can encourage people to continue to seek education, I think it'll help them run their business. There is a myth that you need to have a lot of money to go to like a Princeton or another, or Fordham, right? And that's not always the case. Both institutions have generous alumni that allow for students to get financial aid, scholarship support. So encourage people to look, especially underserved communities, to look at our institutions, to look at Princeton, to look at Fordham, because as I said earlier, having this experience, I see it is pretty transformational. And there's a lot of mysticism that you think that only wealthy people can attend, and that's not the case. Again, our team, because we fundraise to secure access and affordability opportunities, we're trying to demystify that. To everyone else, there is an attack on higher education, and that's unfortunate. Our institutions do so much. We wouldn't have, all the research if it wasn't for our institutions. I know the work that you do, I know touches upon a lot of the teaching and the learning that happens, right? We need more educators, right? And we need people that are going to commit and support to have more teachers. We need partners with us because we can't solve it all and we don't have the infinite resources to solve everything. But collectively, with our alumni and other benefactors, I think we can do more. Not only at Princeton, but again, I think institutions like Fordham and others need philanthropic support to help solve some of our most pressing needs. And higher education is doing such a great job that it's unfortunate that what's being said out there is often misguided and not factually accurate. Of course, there are things we could all be doing better, but I'm so proud to work in this sector. I'm so proud of the people that I get to collaborate with day in and day out, because I think we are making a difference. And I would just encourage people to pay attention to us at Princeton, pay attention to folks at at Fordham and other institutions, because higher ed is making a difference, and we just need more people to continue to advocate for us.
Well, Eric, I want to thank you for this opportunity to learn with and from you here at EdUp Accelerated Excellence.
No, hey, thank you. I mean, I not only that I enjoy this and we'll relish this moment. I just really appreciate the work. For those that aren't listening, I encourage you, to tune into the podcast and get to hang out with Jacob a little bit more.
Thank you for engaging with EdUp Accelerated Excellence, a member of the EdUp Experience network of educational podcasts. You can find this and other episodes on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Radio, YouTube, and other outlets where you listen to your favorite podcasts. If you like this episode, don't forget to follow us and share within your network. To leave a comment or suggest a guest, contact us online at edupxe.com.
A special thanks to our research assistant, Emma Worthington, a PhD student of Fordham University's School Psychology program. And we want to hear from you if you have feedback on this or other episodes, or would like to nominate a guest. Contact us online at edupxe.com. That's edupxe.com.